There are construction projects where trucks simply cannot reach. The roads end long before the job site begins, and installing a crane on top of a mountain is simply not an option. China found an unusual solution to exactly that problem. Instead of cutting new access roads and disturbing protected areas, 16 heavy-lift cargo drones transported nearly 180 tons of steel and concrete directly across steep cliffs in just 3 days. But they are not lifting entire cranes. As some videos suggest, that is still impossible. The real breakthrough is something else. Replacing part of the work traditionally done by cranes, by transporting materials piece by piece, flight after flight, turning previously inaccessible locations into fully viable construction sites. Before we continue, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. This changes the first rule of construction. In many projects, the hardest part is not building the structure itself. The greatest challenge is simply reaching the place where that structure needs to exist. In many projects, the biggest challenge is not the construction itself, but getting to the site. Mountain transmission towers, power lines in remote regions, and projects inside protected areas often require roads, cranes, or weeks of site preparation. China is changing that equation with heavy-duty industrial cargo drones. Instead of transporting large machines to the site, these drones carry the construction materials directly through the air, eliminating much of the infrastructure that would normally be required before construction can even begin. These are not oversized recreational drones, but aircraft specifically engineered for industrial applications. Models such as the Skytech S400+, the United Aircraft TD550D, and the DJI Flycart 100 can carry hundreds of pounds, operate at high elevations, and use precision winch systems to deliver loads exactly where they are needed. The result is a new way of building, where access is no longer the greatest obstacle, and that winch system is far more important than it might seem. Delivery drones usually transport something from one landing point to another. Construction drones, however, have to accomplish something far more demanding. They must place a load precisely where it is needed, remain perfectly stable, lower it safely, and release it without allowing it to swing into workers, cables, or rocks. At that moment, the concept becomes much more than transportation. The drone stops behaving like a simple delivery vehicle and begins functioning as a small aerial crane. And when an entire fleet can repeat that movement all day long, a mountain is no longer a barrier. It simply becomes another set of coordinates. The best demonstration took place in Yunnan province. In May of 2025, construction crews needed to build high-voltage transmission towers in Sichu County, where limestone peaks and protected tropical forests made conventional construction extremely difficult. The region also lies along an elephant migration corridor. That meant simply building an access road would have created a new environmental problem before construction even began. Under traditional methods, the project would have required weeks of preparation and major ground disturbance. China sent drones instead. The true impact of this technology becomes clear when the road no longer has to be the first step of a construction project. In a mountainous region of Yunnan, 16 cargo drones completed dozens of flights carrying steel beams, concrete components, and equipment directly to the transmission towers. In only 3 days, nearly 180 tons of materials reached the site without the need to build roads or install cable transport systems. More than simply accelerating construction, the project preserved the forest and dramatically reduced its environmental impact. Instead of adapting the mountain to the project, the drones turned the sky into a supply route. The same technology is also transforming power grid maintenance. In Xinjiang, a DJI Flycart 100 delivered tools to an isolated transmission tower in less than 30 minutes, replacing hours of dangerous manual transport across rugged terrain. Beyond saving time, the drone eliminated the most hazardous part of the job, demonstrating that the future of construction and infrastructure maintenance may begin in the sky rather than on the road. Ice on transmission lines is far more than an inconvenience. The additional weight can damage critical equipment, and removing it often forces crews to work near frozen metal structures and high-voltage systems under extremely severe weather conditions. China has begun using drones to keep workers out of those dangerous environments. In Hubei province, a task that once exposed workers to significant danger is now carried out by drones. One aircraft transports a heating system to melt accumulated ice, while another uses a suspended pole to knock excess ice from the transmission lines. The concept is simple. Send the machine into the most dangerous location while keeping people safely away. The same pattern appears throughout these projects. The drones do not replace every worker or every machine. Instead, they take over the most difficult, expensive, and dangerous tasks. In Yunnan, they protected the forest. In Xinjiang, they eliminated dangerous manual transportation across rugged terrain. In Hubei, they reduced workers' exposure to ice-covered power lines. That is why this technology represents far more than an impressive demonstration. It is already becoming part of real-world infrastructure. And this raises an important question. Why do the United States, despite having developed similar technologies years earlier, now appear to have lost the lead in this race? The Cayman K-MAX, originally developed as a heavy-lift helicopter with intermeshing rotors, was converted into an unmanned aircraft and deployed by the United States Marine Corps in Afghanistan. It transported supplies to remote outposts and demonstrated that autonomous cargo transport worked precisely where sending people was most dangerous. The technological capability already existed. The demonstration was real. The problem came afterward. The K-MAX never became a widely used tool for the construction industry. The technology existed, but it never reached everyday commercial use. It remained expensive, complex, and limited to military operations and highly specialized applications. Only a small number of units were ever produced, and the program was eventually discontinued. China chose a different path. Instead of relying on a single large aircraft, it built an entire ecosystem of heavy-lift cargo drones for civilian applications, especially in construction and electrical infrastructure maintenance. Instead of selling a single machine, it created an entire market. Much of that difference comes down to regulation. In the United States, large drones face lengthy certification processes and strict restrictions on flights beyond the operator's visual line of sight. While those regulations serve legitimate safety purposes, they also make it more difficult to scale operations and attract investment. In China, drone airspace has increasingly been treated as part of the nation's infrastructure. Air corridors, licensing systems, and urban planning have evolved together, allowing companies to invest with greater confidence. Cities such as Shenzhen already operate dedicated logistics drone routes, while others are planning specific zones for this type of transportation. The message is clear. Build the drones because the infrastructure is being prepared to support them. In the end, the competition is not determined only by the aircraft itself. It depends on the entire ecosystem built around putting it into operation. China is not lifting entire tower cranes as though they were toys. What it is doing is making parts of construction that once depended on cranes increasingly less dependent on them. A job site that once required an access road, a staging area, and a complex lifting operation can now receive smaller loads directly through the air. That does not replace a massive crane on a skyscraper project, but it can transform remote tower construction, power transmission projects, emergency repairs, and work in mountainous regions. The first industries truly transformed by drones may not be the most spectacular ones. They may simply be the industries where reaching the site has always represented the greatest expense. There is also a military dimension behind all of this. A drone capable of transporting construction materials to an isolated mountain can also deliver supplies to a disputed border region. The same route planning systems used to transport power grid components can also move equipment intended for security forces. China's largest unmanned aerial vehicles, equipped with modular payload compartments for different types of cargo, make this dual-use potential increasingly difficult to ignore. Western governments recognize that risk, which is why Chinese drone platforms face growing restrictions in the United States. But those restrictions also create another problem. Even if the United States limits access to Chinese drones, which are currently among the most affordable and advanced on the market, domestic alternatives still face high costs and limited production. That creates a gap that cannot be solved through political decisions alone. It is true that construction drones still have limitations. Battery endurance, strong winds, high elevations, and the proximity of power lines continue to present significant challenges. They also cannot replace cranes in major heavy lifting operations. But perhaps they do not have to. Eliminating the need to build access roads, install cable transport systems, move equipment across dangerous terrain, or spend weeks preparing a job site may be enough. When that happens, building in remote locations stops being primarily a logistical challenge. A drone carrying steel beams to the top of a mountain, delivering tools across a river, or removing ice from power lines before a worker ever has to climb. While China is turning these operations into routine practice, other countries are still debating how to integrate this technology into everyday use. So when someone claims that Chinese drones are lifting tower cranes like tiny toy helicopters, the literal statement is false, but the warning behind it is not. China is proving that construction does not always have to begin from the ground. If the United States cannot develop the regulations, the market, and the industrial supply chain needed to keep pace with this transformation, the next generation of infrastructure may take to the skies while the West is still waiting for clearance to take off. If this video changed the way you think about drones, subscribe to the channel for more in-depth analyses that reveal what is really happening behind viral videos. And now, I want to hear your opinion. Do the United States still have time to close this gap, or has China already transformed drones into something far greater than just another aviation technology? Let us know in the comments.